Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Vocal Arts. I'm your host, Peter Barber, professional singer and music producer, and I recently, just this morning, had the great pleasure of chatting with Emily Kristen Morris, who has been on Broadway. She's built one of the most successful voice studios in the world. She's immensely talented. She's super smart. Really fun to talk to her. We got into the nitty-gritty about some vocal technique stuff, which was always really fun for a vocal nerd like myself. So please, guys, put your hands together. Give a warm welcome to Emily Kristen Morris. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Vocal Arts. Wherever you are watching or listening from, I am here with the wonderful Emily Kristen Morris, and I'm going to pass the baton to her and allow her to tell you guys a little bit about who she is and what she's up to.
My name is Emily Kristen Morris. I am a professional actor, singer, dancer living in New York City, as well as voice teacher. Yeah, you might know me from the national tour. I just finished the national tour of Wicked as the Elphaba standby. And you also might know me from online. I have a large following, just like Peter, on social media, and mostly do content about the voice and trying to make vocal technique and vocal anatomy and the voice in general feel less, trying to demystify, what that crazy thing is that we can't see, and make singing, make singing more fun and enjoyable and something that everybody can understand.
Yeah, I was actually just perusing pretty intensively your TikTok to kind of get a full scope of what you do, because I've seen your content for a while now, but kind of getting almost like a ratio of what you put on there. And I love how much you include about teaching singing. Like, it's not all the viral stuff, the reaction videos that perform so well. It's a lot about like really trying to help people figure out their voice and how to improve. So how did you stumble upon that as your kind of content structure?
I would say that's where my oh my God. I would say that's where my content structure started. It started all truly educational. And then, you get into sort of the fun things like the reactions and singing, just like me singing and stuff like that. But I really, started my TikTok because I wanted to build my business, really. I didn't start because I, wanted to be an influencer. I didn't start because I don't know, needed people to know my name. I just wanted, I wanted to build my business. Basically, I started TikTok, when the pandemic hit, and so I'm an actor. So, leading up to the pandemic, more than half of my time, was spent auditioning and performing. And then the other part was teaching. So I didn't have as much time to teach. I had, enough students. I felt good about that. But then the pandemic hit and I had all this time where I, wasn't performing or auditioning or anything. And, really wanted to start teaching, much more. And really, I joined TikTok because I wanted more students, and that totally exploded. And within just a few months, I had more students wanting lessons than I had hours in the day. But yeah, that's how it all started.
I mean, that's a great pivot from the hardcore performance track. And it does sound like even someone like you who was finding success as a performer was already teaching some on the side, which really speaks to how difficult it is to go into any kind of career in performance. I'd actually love to wind the clock back a little bit and kind of get into those like formative educational years. I know you did some time at Cincy. I have so many opera singer friends that went through that program. Fantastic program.
Yeah.
And then going to New York, getting on the audition circuit, and then like becoming a performer. So let's wind back to maybe your time at Cincy. That could be a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went to the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. It's actually, the technical title is the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, which is the longest title.
That's a mouthful.
So stupid. But yeah, I knew, probably by the beginning of high school that I wanted to do do musical theater professionally. Not to say you need to know early, people fall into it later, and that's fine. But yeah, I knew that I wanted to get a BFA in musical theater. And yeah, I ended up at CCM, which was like honestly the best experience. Conservatory training is really hard and the hours are long and all of that, but I loved it. I really did. I finally felt like I was like, I mean, in high school, I did a few professional theater gigs or sort of semi-professional theater gigs in the San Francisco area. I'm from San Francisco. And I remember just being like so pissed that I would have to be doing my homework at intermission when all these professional singers and actors were just doing this for their job and life. And like, I was just so ready to like really dive in. And so that's what it was. And I loved it. I met my husband, who I just got married 3 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, he was in my class. I met, all my best friends, and I got really incredible training. So yeah, 4 years at CCM.
Oh, so that was undergrad.
Yeah, undergrad.
Okay.
Yep. Undergrad. And then at the end of your, BFA 4 years, you do, most BFA programs do this. Hint, if anybody's listening and a BFA that you're looking into doesn't do this, I would question that. So there's a showcase at the end where they, everybody flies out to New York and you do a showcase in front of casting directors and agents. And it's just sort of the school's way of helping their graduates, get their foot in the door. So we all moved to New York after, because we did our showcase. And then, if we were fortunate enough to like meet with agents, we did. And yeah, so we're all here, which is also cool. Like, I think it's a lovely thing to have that community. Yeah,
It is such a
cool.
wild career jump, musical theater compared to opera, because musical theater, and I have a lot of friends in musical theater, some who are now on Broadway as well. It's undergrad and then
you go.
you're off to the cattle calls, as opposed to opera is this much longer, slower, like more and more and more training and more young artist programs until you finally might be able to start working as a guest artist, which is like where I'm at right now, like just getting into the guest artist stuff.
Which is
It's
so brutal because it takes you forever to like start making money off of this thing
oh
you're training.
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I have a
That's
few opera friends who really, we talk about this a lot. It's really
it's tough.
different.
It's tough, but also on the musical theater side, you're going in as a horde to New York, right? And just like opera, there are so many people auditioning to very few opportunities.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's pretty
Yep.
much your senior class just
Yeah. Yeah.
hitched a ride to New York together, basically.
Yep. And that's true of, all those top BFA programs. It's kind of what you do. Some people might end up in LA or maybe Chicago, but it's pretty much everybody goes to New York. Yeah. And I think like, the funny thing about musical theater is like, we really can't. I mean, you could go, get a master's in musical theater if you wanted, I suppose, but like, it's sort of like 22, that's prime, that's
Yeah.
when so many of these roles are written and a lot of people, graduate and immediately are doing shows like, Mean Girls and The Prom and shows about high schoolers, like they need people that are young and they need, that age of talent. There is, room for people.
Yeah,
So,
that's a major difference because for opera, I'm
right.
sure as you know, it's all about like vocal maturity. And so you'll have someone who's 45 playing Carmen, who's supposed to be like a 15-year-old gypsy girl, because you just have to have the requisite power and resonance and training to sing with
Yeah.
orchestra without a microphone. That's a really interesting difference between the two.
Yeah, I know. No, in musical theater, it has, obviously you have to be able to sing whatever role you're going in for, but so much of it is about look and feel and do you fit the character and is your age appropriate? Yeah.
So it's a lot more like film in that way, I
Yeah.
suppose, than opera.
Yeah. Yeah. Film takes it
Mm.
one step
One
forward,
step
but
further, right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, very interesting. So what was your vocal training like at Sensi for musical theater? Because I really know how the classical voice path works as far as training, like really the kinds of things you work on. like
Yeah, yeah.
down to the most nitty gritty. But for musical theater, I don't know quite as much about just the way you build a musical theater voice. So what were you working on at Cincy?
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying this as a voice teacher, as somebody who's, gone through 5 years with a certification program and, I think knows a bit about the voice. I will say that there just are a lot, there are a lot more voice teachers out there who have been trained in like bel canto and, what we think of as more classical technique, maybe more opera technique, than there are teachers trained in more quote unquote contemporary techniques. Because classical singing has been around forever,
Yeah.
and so,
Whether or not they should be teaching it is a whole other story.
right, right. Yeah. And my personal belief is like, sometimes people say there's that old saying of like, if you can sing classical, you can sing anything.
Mm.
I don't know that I believe that. I don't know that, if you can sing classical music, that means you're going to be able to nail an Ariana Grande song. Like, I don't know if I
I
believe
definitely don't believe that at all.
that.
As
So,
someone, yeah,
yeah, I think that foundationally, all voice teachers are sort of trying to get to the same thing, resonance and support and talking about the vocal tract and
yeah.
shaping it, whatever. But style is huge, and
Hmm.
so I will say most of the teachers at CCM, even though they worked with the MTs, and most were pretty good, I would say. I loved my teacher, but they were all voice faculty. We were working with a lot of the same teachers that the opera singers, that they were working with. And I think some teachers were more open to, more contemporary styles than others. And it's hard because I just think it's a new frontier, voice teachers studying things like, I don't know, like vocal distortion or
Yeah, yeah.
like, even twang to a certain extent, these things that, riffing, things that we hear in really contemporary musical theater these days. Because musical theater used to be so much more in alignment with, bel canto when we were
Yeah.
doing Rodgers and
Yeah.
Hammerstein.
Hmm.
But now everybody's going in for Hamilton and it's like
Yeah.
a different thing.
Pretty different. Pretty different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually really did love my voice teacher though. She was wonderful. Karen Likes had a background in sort of both, and she'd been she'd been on staff at NYU before CCM. Like she'd sort of been around the block and was able to really talk to me, I think, in the language that made sense to me. I also had studied growing up. My voice teacher had been somebody who also sort of had a little bit of an opera background, but had sort of transitioned into musical theater. He was like one of those Valjeans in Les Mis that did it for like 10 years over and over and over again.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
like big voice and definitely opera technique. But, he was like big in the 80s and 90s. So, he did some of those more pop and rock leaning things too. And so anyway, that was like pretty familiar to me, I
Okay.
think.
Okay. Let's talk about the pitfalls of being classically trained when you're trying to sing different genres. Because I completely agree with you. I mean, as someone who is singing opera professionally, but also does so much music outside of opera with the bass gang and with my own stuff, there
Hmm.
were so many things I had to like almost detrain
Yeah.
to be able to like belt instead of sing
Right.
like an operatic high note. And then it's obviously different for women as well, who are in opera are singing generally in a different register than if they're singing in musical theater.
Yeah.
So there's all these things that if you try to apply them directly to pop or musical theater, it's
Yeah.
not going to work out so well. So what are some of those things?
Yeah, totally. Um, well, for women, often, not always, right? Every voice is different, but often, and I love working with classical singers, by the way. I love working with classical singers and then, you know, sort of shifting the narrative and seeing what we can do in terms of more contemporary styles and stuff. That's so fun. And it's not to say that they can't use that opera training in their opera material. You know what I mean? I think if you're a great vocalist, you should be able to do it all. Like that's awesome. Take
Mhm.
the tools that work for each style and go with it. But yeah, so often for women, the big sort of pitfall is that old timey approach of teaching classical singers, sopranos, mezzos, even altos, that chest voice should be incredibly light or even maybe sometimes not used at all.
Yeah. 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 For the really high voice types. Yeah.
Yeah. And, for me, in my training at least, the first passaggio for women starts at A4 up until C. And if you're, transitioning into head voice on like I don't know,
Mhm.
a D4, then
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that is certainly not going to translate to contemporary styles, which for musical theater, certainly a spoken quality chest voice is like imperative because we're
Yeah.
going from speech to singing so much that
Hmm.
nothing's worse than when someone's talking in a scene and then they start singing and you're like, what is that voice? And then for pop and rock, that sound really is sort of like one of the sort of qualifiers of that sound is almost sounding untrained. It's people who, have just sort of course they haven't, right? We know that the best
Yeah.
pop and rock singers also have training, but, part of what our ear likes is kind of the roughness and
Yeah.
the fact that they don't feel as trained, and so,
Mhm.
okay, well, one of the things that definitely is going to need to be in play then is chest voice, because that's where we speak. That's colloquial. So that's a big thing for women. Yeah, and then, honestly, a lot of what I teach, which I don't know if you can even call this contemporary or, I don't know if you can classify this for a style, but really a lot of what I teach and believe in is learning to mix, right?
Mm.
And that connection from low to high is so like sometimes I think, especially for like operatic tenors, it's like they've just been taught to sort of pull and hope for the best.
Mhm.
Of course, the best operatic tenors don't do that, but yeah. So getting women and men, but yeah, especially the men to sort of figure out what is it to start blending and mixing at the first passage and higher, so that then you can, mix belts, all those songs that Aaron Tveit is doing on Broadway and Bruno Mars is doing in his songs. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm rambling. There's so much to talk about here. And I love talking with you about it because I can tell that like
Yeah.
you're just a fellow singer who gets it. And
I get
like,
it. I understand the things.
and I mean, come on, like also let it be known, I have the most respect for classical singers. I, I really can't. I can teach, sort of light, legit musical theater, soprano work. I can do that, but I have no business teaching opera singers. And I remember when I moved to New York, it had been like a year and I hadn't booked anything, which is super common, auditioning every day,
Mhm.
getting up at 4 a.m. and waiting in lines. And I remember my dad was like, well, Emily, on the phone, you're a singer. Maybe you should try auditioning for opera. And I was like, oh my God.
It
Because it's just a different skill set. And
is.
I
It's
have the most respect for opera singers. But I guess that does sort of like double down on the notion of like, I would never claim to be able to teach, a coloratura soprano working at the Met. I just wouldn't. I would, transfer them along to a colleague.
yeah.
And I think that goes to show like, maybe some of these teachers who haven't done any continued education in the last 10 years, who really have a background in absolute classical technique, might not know what to do with somebody who needs to do a big, pop rock belt musical theater show 8 times a week. It's a different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think opera is pretty removed. I mean, it's such a specialized, like
Yeah.
you're basically doing vocal engineering to your voice forever. And then your voice
Mhm.
changes and you tweak things. And
Right.
it's really, and of course, the higher it goes, the more nuanced and polished it gets, and the more you really need someone who has spent their whole life working with opera singers. And
Right.
what you get a lot, I mean, I see this a lot, is someone will go to school for music ed, and out of their undergrad, they're teaching young opera singers, and I'm like, that it's not possible. That
Yeah.
that like square peg round hole as far as usually it's good to have an opera singer who at least has performed some,
Yeah.
as a working professional. Doesn't always mean a great teacher,
Right.
and
Right.
and
Right.
and and vice versa. But someone who just did like beginner choir and took some voice lessons cannot be teaching such a specialized, and really shouldn't be teaching probably anyone, but definitely
Yeah.
cannot be teaching opera singers. So I agree. They are kind. It is kind of stratified that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. Teaching voice is so interesting because I also think like there is this, first of all, there's no like one, qualification like taking the bar exam that just like makes you a voice. Anybody can be a voice teacher.
Yeah.
Um, and like sometimes it's great singers who think, okay, I'm a good singer, so I can teach voice, but okay, you're a 30-year-old woman. What are you going to do with a 15-year-old boy? Like you haven't
Hmm.
studied voice, so what are you going to do with somebody who has a totally different instrument than you? And then vice versa, you have, yeah, maybe somebody who, yeah, got some training in the art of teaching voice, but has no experience themselves and
Hmm.
can't speak to the nuances of like performance, which is a whole
Yeah.
different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the voice teachers do both, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so for sure. I mean, I think that's probably is what contributed to making your voice studio so successful is you've done the thing and you know how to teach the thing,
Yeah.
which is rare, I would say, and critical.
Yeah, yeah. I know all of our teachers are that way. So yeah, at this point I have 7 associate teachers at EKM and they're all, yeah, you know, either currently performing or have like a history of, performing professionally. But then we're all also certified through the Institute for Vocal Advancement and sort of have that background and, you know, are continuing our education. So yeah, I think it's important. I really do.
Do you get a certain kind of student more often? I remember when
Yeah.
for example, I remember when I was teaching at USC as a TA, just because I had a
Uh-huh.
scholarship when I was doing my master's
Yep.
there. Most
Yeah.
people that came into the studio wanted to learn how to sing pop stuff.
Okay. Uh-huh.
I usually steered them more towards classical because I was way better at teaching that and knew a lot
Yeah.
more about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
which they ended up liking. They ended up like really
Oh.
enjoying trying to sing in like a new language and
Uh-huh.
learning about,
Yeah.
kind of the fundamentals and stuff. But do you guys get a certain kind of singer more often than not?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, okay. Probably the most common singer that walks into our studio is, either aspiring professional or professional musical theater artists. But
Okay.
then we do actually get a lot of either classical singers or classically trained voice teachers who want to learn how to teach and do in their own voice, more contemporary styles. We get a lot of that
Oh,
too, which is so fun. I love that.
interesting. I didn't think about teachers wanting to learn how to teach
We get
something
a
new.
lot of that. Yeah, earlier today I had a lesson with somebody who has a background in classical voice, and she just got hired on to a university's, voice program where she would be teaching singers, and she assumed she was going to be teaching classical singers, but she got assigned 7 musical theater majors this year, and she's like,
Oh,
whoa! So she's taking lessons because, she wants to have better, understanding of what to do with those singers, which is so cool. I love that.
good for her. Shout out
I
to that
know.
teacher.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so teachers coming in, aspiring musical theater singers. So are these like people like a younger version of yourself that had just come out of Sensi that is trying
Totally.
to trying to make it on Broadway, basically?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Or even like, we have some even like high schoolers who are like gonna be auditioning for college programs and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. And then we also do get some singer-songwriters in the pop world. I think, we're so New York based. We're not actually because all of us are teaching online, but all of us have this, background in New York that we don't get as much of that maybe because that's more of the Nashville, LA world maybe, but
Hmm.
we also get some of that too, which is cool.
Very interesting. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your work as a performer.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question. I actually don't know about this. Is a standby the same thing as a cover?
Uh, okay, yes, sort of. Yeah, the like terminology is so screwy and
Okay.
so okay, let me give you a lesson.
Yes.
Okay. So understudy means that you are in the ensemble of a show understudying a lead. The lead gets sick, goes on vacation, whatever. The understudy gets bumped up, and a swing from offstage who knows all of the ensemble tracks goes into that ensemble track.
Okay.
A standby is someone who is not on stage, not in the ensemble, sitting backstage, first in line to go in. Usually you only do standbys for roles that are sort of considered like high demand. Yeah, and so standby is an offstage position until they are needed. And then and then an alternate is like a standby, but an alternate does matinees or does like one show a week. So Leah Michelle had an alternate on Funny Girl last year. Somebody who like I think she did Thursday nights and Sunday matinees or something. And then cover is basically an umbrella term that people use for all things. People use cover interchangeably.
That's so interesting. So in opera, we just have cover and understudy. Understudy just means basically you learn the role, but you're not going to go on for it. It's like very much a study thing.
Got it.
You're just learning it to get experience learning the role. This would be really common in like a lot of young artist programs. You might have a young artist that's performing a small role, maybe covering something, maybe understudying a lead role, just so they can say they learned it with this opera company, basically.
I see. Okay.
Cover is the person that actually will go on if the main person can't perform. And we don't have anything. We don't have a standby thing. That would just be like emergency call someone who knows the role from across the country and fly them out, but they wouldn't be there already.
Yeah. And standbys are like not super common. I mean, they're just in sort of specific, roles that are just considered really taxing or special in some way. Like, Hugh Jackman had a standby in Music Man. Yeah, and it's just up to the producer in terms of how they want to track out coverage. There's no like rhyme or reason for why.
So if the person who's performing gets sick and goes off, who's first in line? Does that depend on the role?
Standby. Standby's
always first. Okay, standby then understudy.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Very interesting. And you actually did go on.
Oh yeah. Standbys for Alphaba go on because Alphaba is a hard role.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that many shows a week, I cannot. I mean, that's another big difference between musical theater and opera.
Yes.
The number of performances is completely different.
Well, which also means that coverage is more used probably in musical theater.
Oh, for sure. I would say for sure. Yeah. From everything I've heard.
Yeah. No, I definitely went on a bunch and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was scary because you never know when you're going to go on. So that's a little crazy. But it was really a special experience. It was a role I didn't know that I would ever do. I mean, I loved the show growing up. I still love the show. But it felt like a sort of specific skill set that I wasn't sure I had. And it wasn't ever something like, I'm going to play that role one day. I have to play that role. So when it happened, I was like, oh, cool. Like, how awesome is this? And really like, just grew to love it so much. I love that role so much. But yeah, it's so hard. And you need a standby.
Is this for the national tour?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen that many Broadway shows in person, but I did see Wicked when I was in New York years ago, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I saw Frozen when it came to Los Angeles because a buddy from my a cappella group in undergrad was in it, Austin Colby. I don't know if you've heard of him. But, he and his wife were in Frozen together on the national tour. But I really need to see more because I actually love Broadway. I've never really performed, obviously never performed on Broadway. Musical theater is not yet in my vocal palette, but I absolutely love musicals. I mean, I just think they're wonderful. So
you get lots of good tours through Phoenix, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna start scoping for sure. So about how often did you go on? if it's a more common thing than covering in opera, for
It was
example.
not an exact science at all. Like, if she gets sick, maybe I'm on for half a week.
Hmm.
Uh, it also just depends on who you're covering and how, what their stamina looks like and what their personal life looks like and,
Hmm.
what their health looks like, what their mental health looks like, whatever. So it really just depends on a lot of different factors. And like at different seasons, I was on a lot more than others. There was a 2 month stint, maybe even more, 2.5 months, where I didn't go on. And I was like, whoa, the first time I went on after that stint. But then, sometimes you're on every week. It just sort of depends on a million factors.
Follow-up question, and obviously you don't have to reveal numbers, but do you get paid the same whether you go on or not, or do you get a kick if you perform?
Yeah, so a lot of I would get comments on my TikToks about the show with people being like, "Oh, do you not get paid?" Of course I get paid. This is not an internship. This is like one of the, frankly, like
High level
jobs you
performance.
can get.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a really, really, really good job for a musical theater artist to get. And I am traveling around the country and I'm at the theater every day. So you better believe I'm getting paid. So yeah, no, you have a base salary. And this is true of any understudy situation on Broadway or on a Broadway national tour. You have your base salary. And then when you go into a track, you get like a small bump basically for doing that. I think it's technically usually it's an eighth of your salary every time you go on.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question. Obviously, you're getting paid for the tour. I was curious
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
if you got the bump for each performance, because
yeah.
there's all like different opera houses operate with different union
Yeah.
rules, and sometimes there's
Mhm.
like big bumps and fees. Sometimes it's just you just are
Yeah,
just
yeah.
paid to be there for the cover, and there's no extra if you go on, this kind
Interesting.
of thing. So,
I do think that the union actors equity, the standards is an eighth. I don't think you can't get a bump. I think you have
okay.
to go on for a principal track. Might be different if you were understudying not a principal track, but yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is I mean, now you said that tour is over now?
Just I'm no longer on the road with them. That tour has been going since, whenever, I don't know. When did that tour start? Probably like the early 2000s because that's when the show was on Broadway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So no, that will go on forever and ever probably. I left the tour just about a year ago now. I've been back in New York.
Okay. Did you
Yeah.
want to just pursue your vocal studio?
Well, at least at Wicked, and this is again like just sort of how different shows do different things. At least at Wicked, principal contracts typically don't last more than a year. I think they don't ever want their principals to get tired. I think they want, fresh blood and whatever. I think it's actually smart because some shows don't do that. And then you have somebody doing the same role for 13 years and, they're tired. So yeah, that's sort of how it works at Wicked. I also was sort of ready though. Yeah, I was ready. I was excited to get back to plan our wedding and like be in
Hmm.
the same apartment as my fiance at the time.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that like they call what's the word for it? There's like a word in our industry for these types of jobs that like the things like Hamilton, things like Wicked, things like Lion King, these jobs that like there's no closing date coming anytime soon. And
Yeah.
so it's sort of this thing of like, well, if you're not a principal, if you're in the ensemble and you could, well, you could stay forever and you could, put your kids through college and you could, this is a day job forever if you, maybe if you want.
Hmm.
I think that, and for some people that's sort of the dream. And I think for me, I'm like, I am interested in doing different things and I like, I got into acting and singing because I like the process of like diving into somebody's, head and body and figuring out who they are and mine. And
Mm.
so, I don't ever want to sit with something too long, I don't think.
Yeah.
I like working on new stuff, new works. I like, I love rehearsal. That's the best. I love rehearsal.
You're in the right business then.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much study and so much rehearsal compared to performance, really.
Yeah.
Unless
Well,
I suppose you do. I mean, it is also different on musical theater. Like if you are singing the same role for years at a time on Broadway or on a tour, then you learned it and now you're just
yep.
repping it and repping it and repping it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And that's also like a privileged thing for me to say because I happen to have another career that I love. I happen to have
Mhm.
this other thing. For a lot of people, it's like, well, I'm not going to leave this Broadway show. What's the alternative? I'm going to go back to catering, like this is amazing and I'm going to stay. And I think for me, I equally love building my studio and I love teaching. And so when I'm not performing 8 shows a week, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah,
So that's also part of it.
we have it pretty good.
Yeah, I feel really
I
lucky. I
think about that a lot. I mean, I was just at the Aspen Music Festival for the 2 months over the summer performing
Oh,
there,
cool.
and
What were you doing?
I was singing a role in Marriage of Figaro, and I did this
Mhm.
world premiere by Matthew O'Coin called "Music for New
Cool.
Bodies," the hardest piece of music I've actually. His podcast episode's coming out next week. Um, and I did Simone and Johnny Skiki, and then a bunch of other
Oh my
performance
gosh.
stuff.
So
So,
fun.
um, so yeah, so summer in Aspen, very cool. And then I get back, and I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed just being in my house and
Yeah.
getting up and coming into the studio and recording and editing
Mhm.
and producing and doing the podcast and doing musical analysis videos just like the whole day for like basically a month
So
straight at this
fun.
point. And then in 2 weeks I go to Opera Las Vegas for a world premiere there. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. The blend is phenomenal. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a blessing. It's absolutely a blessing.
I do think like I was talking to a friend about this the other day. I think that at least when I was growing up and getting into this field, I don't know if you feel this way. There was this notion of like you cannot have a plan B. If you have a plan B, you're gonna take it. Like you have to just put all your eggs in one basket and go for plan A. And I know it's a crazy dream to be on Broadway, but if you want it, you have to prove it. And don't you dare have any other interests or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, like I don't think that's how we operate these days. But I would argue that it's actually not about having a plan B either, though. It's about having your plan A, which is your dream, and then having a separate plan A next to it that supports plan A, the first one that
Hmm.
supports the original dream and is a day job that brings you money that you happen to also like. And that's a
Yeah.
really hard thing to find, but that also can ebb and flow with the dream. And so sometimes I think people think like, you know, you study as a singer and that's what you're going to do. And when you're not singing, you're going to babysit and it'll be fine. Or you're going to, you're going to cater and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I would argue that like, if you have a passion for fitness, then go get certified as a personal training coach. If you have if you have a passion for tutoring, then go figure out a way that you can build a tutoring business where you can work with people on their SATs, like whatever it may be, but like find something that you can do in tandem with your dream so that when the dream isn't happening, you can ebb and flow, and hopefully it isn't something you hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like crucial to being an artist.
I completely agree. I also think it's making the two things happen is really just a time management thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like genuinely because there is as much time and training as it takes to prepare, say, like a 350-page role in Italian for an opera. It takes a very long time to learn that role and get it in your voice, but you're not working on it from when you wake up to when you go to sleep.
No.
You've got a couple hours of actually like full
Hmm.
singing you can do. You've
Hmm.
probably got another 3 or 4 if you really want to beat your head against the wall where you're memorizing translations. And then you've got another, what, 12 hours
Yeah.
of the day
Yeah.
where you can put towards anything you want. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's how I viewed it is like right now. So, for the first 3 weeks when I was home, this is a quick example for all the folks out there.
Yeah.
Pretty much all day, every day was YouTube, recording, editing, all the non operatic stuff. And I knew I had a scope on how big the role was for this world premiere, so I knew about how much time it was going to take to prepare it. So now, as of just a couple of days ago, that whole morning time when I was shooting podcast episodes
Mhm.
or shooting for the YouTube channel, that is now opera study time. So it's
Yeah.
like 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. or whatever is like
Yeah.
studying opera, practicing a little bit. I'll probably practice a little more later. But
Mhm.
still, the whole afternoon and evening is gonna be the producing and the YouTube channel and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
just a matter of time. And if you enjoy doing the things, you're going to be willing to sacrifice an afternoon to work on projects or something, you know?
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, find something you enjoy and then just get good at managing your time.
Yeah. Find a way to make that thing, hopefully make you some money so that you don't have to have
hmm
a survival job that you hate and,
hmm And it
yeah.
takes time. It takes time to build up that secondary thing. I mean, usually at the
Oh,
start,
yeah.
you're putting in a lot of work for no money, you
Hmm.
know, and then at some point it starts making money, and then it starts making a little bit more money, and
Well,
then
that's certainly true of social media. Oh my God. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You got to
Yeah.
work at it for a while with nothing back,
Yeah.
and then
Because you love it. You have to love it.
because
Yeah.
you love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's so great that you started to help funnel people towards your teaching studio, and then you quickly realized that was like the greatest vehicle to get new students.
Yeah. I mean, it's like TikTok built my business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 7 associate teachers who I'm able to funnel, students to who I really trust and love and am so grateful and excited that I get to help their, little mini studios thrive. And then I've been able to I built a course, an online course, and I do workshops and master classes, all these things that were like so beyond my scope of reference when I decided to become a voice teacher. Like, you decide to become a voice teacher and you think, one-on-one lessons for as many hours as you can do in a day.
Yeah, yeah.
You're lucky. And there's so much more that I've been able to do. And I feel really like, yeah, it's really cool. And I meet so many interesting people every day from all over the world. And I'm really like, so, yeah, thankful for social media. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? So
Yeah.
are there any cons that you've dealt with on social media? I love asking
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
creators that because they're often a few for all the positive things we've managed to garner from it. There's usually a few setbacks or a few spikes
Yeah.
in the road.
Yeah. I'm sure there is. Well, no. Yes, of course. I mean, it's funny. It's like, I think a lot of people, rightfully so, have complicated relationships with social media. Like, look at the studies, look at, I don't know, mental health in connection to social media, what it's doing for the younger generation, all the things, right? It's really scary. I have always had a pretty good relationship with social media. I enjoy it. I try not to take it too seriously.
hmm
I it's rare that, like mean comments get to me. I think it's like I for some reason I can let it roll off my back and I'm grateful for that. And I don't know how to, you know, teach that, or I can't tell you why that is. Because I know that a lot of that's, I think, what many creators really struggle with, like just the visibility and the scrutiny that can come
hmm
with, putting aspects of your life online.
Yeah.
But I think for me, honestly, the thing that kind of saves me is I'm not like vlogging every minute of my life. Really, I'm sometimes, if I have a fun rehearsal day or whatever and I want to share with my audience,
hmm
but my whole life is not online, and it's mostly a place where I can talk about this thing that I love talking about, which is the voice, and
Yeah.
help other singers understanding their voice, and like when I get back to why I got into this, which is really education, I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I yeah, sometimes, maybe social media goes full social media and I'll post like a bikini pic or something. But it's like really not, it was never about that for me. It was never about
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think that's what has saved me in that. It's about something that I'm really passionate about for
Yeah.
me. I don't know.
That's
What are the downfalls for you?
no, I feel very similarly as you. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I've probably struggled with it more. I remember like when I was building the YouTube channel, hate
Uh-huh.
comments and mean comments would really get to me, and they really don't anymore, like anywhere.
Whatever.
I mean, I'm almost entirely off social media all the time. Like I'll hop in once in a while to check messages,
Uh-huh.
share some update, do a collab post with Big Brev, all
Uh-huh.
the fun stuff you can use social media for, but I'm not on it really at
Right,
all.
right, right.
Um,
Yeah, that's the other thing people don't realize. Like, once you get to a certain point with social media, you probably have hired out a little bit. You have,
mhm.
maybe video editors, or you have,
Yep.
and it's about creating the content, and it's less about scrolling and reading the comments, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, almost never. So, I mean, at this point,
yeah,
I feel like I have a very healthy
yeah.
relationship, but I use it for more as like to stay connected with some people, you
Hmm, hmm.
know,
Yeah,
to keep up to date with what a few people that I really like and enjoy are doing. But
yeah.
there's zero doom scrolling. I mean, zero. I mean, honestly, no joke, for the last month, my screen time per day has been about 30 minutes. Like,
Okay, I
I'm
cannot
just
say the
off
same.
my phone.
Wow, I can't say the same. That's
Phone
amazing.
phone screen time. I use my laptop a lot because I like it and I have a very
Yeah,
healthy
yeah.
relationship with my beautiful laptop.
Uh-huh,
But my
uh-huh.
phone half an hour. Like there are days when I get up from my alarm and I don't even look at it till mid-afternoon. It's just by my bed.
That is incredibly healthy, Peter, and I can't
I've
say that that's me.
I'm telling you, the last month has been like it's like the clearest and
Wow.
happiest I've been because I've never been a phone junkie. Like at most, it was
Uh-huh,
like probably 2 hours or so in the past.
uh-huh,
But
uh-huh.
this, I mean, I have been off my phone for the last month, and it has been really enlightening.
Are you, is somebody posting for you? How many posts a week are you doing? Like, what's
Oh,
your,
so few. I'm telling you,
really?
I think I've posted like 2 times, 3 times since I've gotten back, so about one a week.
Wow.
One was
Okay,
like
so
a
you're
one
doing
was
long form, like bigger.
for YouTube. I post two analysis videos per week and a podcast every other week.
So that's a lot.
So that's a
That's,
lot, but it's pretty much I just record here and I upload it to a Google Drive, and then my editor puts it on YouTube, and then I'll
yeah.
go in and prep it on YouTube, but none of that requires my phone.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
So the phone is for the occasional Instagram update where, like, I just posted my upcoming opera season on there.
Sure.
Yesterday, me, Bobby, and Big Brev posted a video we recorded in Nashville a few months ago. But
Cool.
that, I have to be on for 5 minutes to do that, and then I'm gone. I'll check it the next day.
Wow. No, I run my business on social media and on my phone, and I
Because
am on.
that's where you get your students from, right?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's
The
where.
phone must not bother you. I mean, the holding the phone for too long makes me feel like a goblin, like a little weird, like I'm a little weird creature. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it drives me crazy.
Oh my
I would
God.
so much rather anything I can push to the laptop, I push to the laptop. I'll even check my Instagram on my laptop sometimes.
That is a boomer move of you, but okay.
I
That's
know,
crazy.
I
That's
know.
so funny.
Like,
Yeah,
can I? So
I
like,
really, I don't know about you, but like, I didn't outsource for a long time. I
mhm.
like was really doing it myself up until like maybe a year ago, maybe.
Hmm.
And it's still mostly me, but now at least I have someone who like, we actually have like a system, and I have like
Yeah.
a posting calendar now, and we're more intentional about it, and she will post for me and sometimes but for a long time it felt very loosey goosey and on the fly, and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and sometimes
I
it's
I think I got an editor for YouTube at the start of 2023
uh-huh,
or so. So that was when I could just record the raw content, upload it, and then he would take care of it.
amazing,
And the podcast, I mean, unless there's edits we want to cut, like we'll cut out a few things at
right.
the start, but like aside from that, like I would say more often than not, just start time, end time, and he'll
Yep.
create a little compilation video for the artist or something. And
Yeah.
I might go in and put in chapters myself, like on the actual YouTube video. But the podcast editing is very simple. For the analysis videos, he goes in on those and like does a lot of fun edits. If I talk about, oh, this person just sang a D5, that's a D above tenor high C, he'll put a graphic
Right.
up and show
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah,
that
yeah.
note is, and he's very good about that kind of thing.
No,
But it is very nice to have that off
yeah.
offload. It's so worth the money, to pay a good editor.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
going forward in your career, now
Yeah.
that you have this huge teaching business built up and you've done some really amazing things as a performer, what do you kind of want that balance to look like going forward?
Um, I want it to just continue to be a balance. I think I'm happiest when I'm doing a little bit of both. The performing side is just like harder to decide what it's going to do because it's not up to me. It's up to, casting directors and auditions and whatever.
Mhm.
So, teaching is there for me when that isn't. And I'm about to go do a show next month that I'm excited about. And, I hope that I hope and think that probably the rest of my life will be this, there will be times where I book something where I need to take time off of teaching. And that's, I have an amazing system that supports me in that because I have associate teachers and all that.
Mhm.
And then there will be times where, I'm all in on teaching and building another course or whatever. And that's the dream. Like, I feel really lucky that in a career path where many people feel a complete lack of control over their
Mhm.
future, and
Mhm.
I feel that way about my acting career. I have something that feels very much mine,
Yeah.
which is nice. It's a
Yeah.
good feeling.
Yeah. What does your acting schedule look like, and what kinds of companies and opportunities do you generally look for your performances?
Yeah. So I have an agent who, sends me out on auditions, and a manager, and basically, I mean, it's kind of, when you move to New York right at the beginning, or at least for me, it was about, yeah, going to like open calls and cattle calls and just getting
Mhm.
your face out there. And I was non-union, so getting into auditions was trickier. These days, I mostly am able to like, have an appointment, which I'm really, lucky. Uh, and so depending on like the season, I might audition every week. I might audition once a few weeks. I mean, in the summer, things usually sort of die down, and then in the fall, it's a little busier. And then audition season proper is from like January to May. And
Mm.
during that time, you might have a few auditions every week and memorizing sides and, working on auditions nonstop like it's your job. Uh, yeah, and that's kind of like that is the job of being an actor. Like people think the job of being an actor is performing. The job of being an actor is auditioning.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
you have to find a way to find a good relationship with that, which is hard. But yeah, I think that's most of what honestly being an actor is, auditioning. And then, when you're lucky and something works out, then you get to go do the thing. And um yeah, it's so interesting. Like I think when you decide to be an actor, like probably when I decided to, get my BFA in musical theater and go to Cincinnati, I was like, Broadway. Like that's the answer. There's so much more though. There's
Mhm.
tours
Mhm.
and there's I mean so many I can't do it because I would get so seasick, but cruise ships,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's regional theaters around America that are so great. I'm about to go do a regional theater gig and I'm so excited about it. There's just so much more that you can do than Broadway. And obviously you keep auditioning for that, but Broadway is like what? There are like 13 musicals on Broadway at any given moment. Who knows how many in those 13 musicals? Maybe you're right for like, I don't know, 7 of them, maybe. In those 7 shows that you're right for, maybe there are like one or two tracks in each of those shows that you're right for. You know what I mean? Like, so
There's 1,500 people going for each single spot,
yeah,
you know?
so it's like it's about so much more than that, um, which is fun, you know?
Yeah. 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 How do
Yeah,
you, one more technical question before we go to
yeah.
Patreon. I'm curious now, you've been training for a long time, you've been performing for a long time, you've been teaching for a long time. How do you approach your own voice and
Mm,
training your own voice? And are there things that you're constantly working on, or does that, you know, change depending on what show's
yes.
coming up and so on?
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm still working on my voice every day. I mean, not every day, but yeah, of course. There's still so many things I'd like to, continue developing in my own voice. Anybody who says that there isn't is crazy. I
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm in voice lessons. Voice teachers take voice lessons, right? Yes, of course.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of it is I have to be pretty intentional about cross training. So when I was doing Alphaba and, belting, mixed belting up until, Fs, uh,
Yeah.
I needed to be cross training and working on, Golden Age musical theater, working on soprano work, making sure I could sing without all that, just like baseline sort of power that comes with, a big belt piece. And then I also had to be sort of cross training my low notes because there's that one random low note and I'm not that girl. She sings down to an E.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, yeah, it's horrible. It's so crazy.
Why
The
would
range
that?
on that.
Who's the composer?
Stephen Schwartz. I
Steven, why would you
think
do
Adina
that?
Menzel could do it. I think it's because Adina Menzel could do it. So they were like, well, let's write it in. But anyway, I think a lot of what I do is cross training because at any given moment, I could be in for an audition. Like musical theater is a big range of style. So making sure, yeah, like that legit stuff is still there while also training like riffs and runs for, Six the musical or whatever. Like,
Mm,
I think a lot of it is cross training. Um, and then just like baseline, just like connection work always. Like I am always working on um, how do I connect through my range without any gaps or flips or breaks? And, how do I smoothly transition from the bottom to the top and back?
hmm.
And how do I do that without, you know, with balance, without it ever feeling squeezy or breathy, right? On either end. And that's like, honestly, that's the spiel I give every new student. That is my goal for every new student, connection and balance. And then from there, then we can work on style. Then we can work on, leaning into chest dominance with more belt or leaning into more head dominance with more of a legit step, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
All that to say, I feel like I'm rambling. The answer is yes. There are always things I'm working on in my voice. And isn't that beautiful? Like, isn't that
Yes.
great?
Forever
It's
student.
great.
Forever
Yeah, it's not
student
a
for
bad
sure.
thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Patreon questions. Just have a few here.
Okay. Love it.
And if there's any you're like, no, I don't want to talk about that, then you don't have to talk about it.
Love it.
Okay. First one is from Amanda Knott. She always asks a bunch of questions.
Uh,
Her resume mentions that she is a cancer survivor. Can you tell us
mhm.
about that? And has that experience impacted your vocal career and other activities one way or the other?
Okay,
Big
so gonna
question.
be honest, it is a great question. Um, I have a lesson in 10 minutes.
Okay. These will,
Well, just that answer, I feel is a long answer.
okay, we're gonna skip that one.
Okay.
We'll Mason cut this out.
I
Okay.
mean, she can I have lots of stuff on about that, but that's just like a whole long story of
Yeah, yeah, totally,
I
totally.
don't know if we need to get into
Totally
that.
fine. Okay. Next question, or first question from Mindy Weiss. As a child, what was your dream compared to your dream/passion now?
Um, Pretty early on, my dream was to be an actor. Yeah,
Wow,
that's kind of crazy.
it lined
Uh,
up.
yeah, yeah. No, I was the kid who was like putting on shows and reenacting movie scenes and um, yeah, I knew I wanted to be an actor even before I knew I wanted to be a singer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, this is actually for my mom. My mom also loves to ask questions. Jenny,
Oh.
Hi, Emily. What is your favorite piece to perform and why? What are your main goals and dreams for your future?
That's so hard. I don't know that I have like a favorite song to perform.
You can rattle off a few. No.
Yeah. I have a lot of like, I mean, and I don't even know if I ever think about it in terms of like songs so much as I think about it in terms of roles, just like roles that
Sure.
excite me.
Yeah.
I have a lot of like dream roles and roles I love singing. Okay, in no particular order. Um, okay, Kathy in Last 5 Years, um, Maureen in Rent, Harper in Angels in America. I want to do B in Something Rotten again. Elsa in Frozen. I really want to do Waitress. Really want to do Jenna in Waitress. I love doing Nellie in South Pacific. I love doing that show. I want to do Amalia in She Loves Me. I want to do Marion in The Music Man. Yeah, there's so many. There's so many. I mean,
Yeah, wow.
I love musical theater. What can I say? And
Yeah.
um, I there's so much I want to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, any final words to the audience and the fans?
God. Well, thanks for having me, Peter. No, this was so fun. And like, I feel like oftentimes in podcasts, like it'll be like question, answer, question. I feel like we
Mhm.
like just talked, which was so lovely.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I know, right? I feel so comfortable and excited to talk with you because you also just
Yay.
send the voice so much. Um, yeah. No, I just feel grateful to be here. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming. I'll let you get your voice lesson.
Okay.
I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Emily. If you did, I'm sure you will enjoy this conversation with another extremely talented, versatile, world-class singer, Katerina Shelahova. Go on. Don't be shy. Click it.